Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. Today's the day I'm going to start my spring garden. We're in mid-August at the moment and I will be planting my first round of tomato seedlings in my main bed over here. I prepared this bed about 4 weeks ago for these tomatoes to be planted out, and I've been growing these out for the last few weeks and they're big enough to go out. The weather today is absolutely beautiful, low 20s. So it's starting to warm up fast here in my patch. So these will do absolutely fine in the garden. Before I plant them out, I'll just come and show you the variety that I'm planting and how my seedlings look at the moment. These are my tomato seedlings and I've got 32 here in total. This variety is called Thunder and I planted these out in early July and about 5 weeks ago. And now they're at that stage where they need to be planted out. I like to plant them out at that five leaf stage, so these are perfect. They're not overly large, about 10 to 12 centimeters long, but these will do perfectly well being transplanted. Now I will be planting 12 today in my patch, and I'll probably be saving some to hand over to family and friends, and I might see if I can find a few extra spots to plant these ones out. I started planning to have my tomatoes planted in this section of the bed about 5 weeks ago, and when I'd removed the cauliflowers that were located in this patch, I amended the bed. But in the meanwhile, while waiting for my tomato seedlings to form and be ready to be planted out, I did put in a filler crop of pak choi, and in the space of 4 weeks they are ready to harvest. I'm just going to bring you in closer and show you my pak choi patch here that I grew in this spot. Now, I generally like to grow fast growing plants in between my main crops, and this was an opportunity for me to get a quick crop in of Asian greens and to use up this space while I was waiting for the tomato seedlings to grow. These again were planted as small seedlings, and in the space of 4 weeks they actually absolutely doubled. Just a lot of fertilizer, a lot of water and heaps of sun, and they grow amazingly. I'm going to be clearing this bed, harvesting the whole lot, and then I will set out my rows across the bed and plant my tomatoes. Finished harvesting that pak choi, and I've got myself a pretty big bucket, probably close to 2 kilos with a pak choi, and I've still got a few rows left, but I was running out of space fast in that bucket, so I'm going to go pick the rest of them. These are semi-washed, just give them a bit of a rinse, and then they'll go in the fridge and be used. I'll be actually handing these out to my in-laws, so they'll be making use of these in dinners throughout the week. Got to clear the rest of that bed, and just hopefully this afternoon after lunch I'll come out and start planting those tomatoes. Back out in the patch this morning, and after having harvested that pak choi, I've decided to keep it for another day before I plant out my tomatoes. It's actually quite a nice mild day today, which is actually perfect for me to plant out seedlings. I do prefer planting my seedlings out when it's more overcast than when it's full blaring sun. Now the bed, what I've done is I've gone through and just broken up the clogs in the bed again. After planting out those pak chois, there was a bit of a crust on the bed, so I just made sure I just broke that up. Now I had prepared this soil about 4 weeks ago before I planted the pak choi seedlings in here, and what I did was I added 2 big barrel loads of homemade compost on this bed, which is made out of horse manure and chicken run waste. That was done to increase the organic matter in the soil. I've also then added a bit of potash and dolomite lime. Potash for the tomatoes, they love it. It does wonders for their growth and helps them produce their fruit. And dolomite lime was added to add that extra calcium to deal with the blossom end rots. Before I plant out my tomatoes, I just want to show you the bed, and I'll show you how I'm actually going to lay out the garden. So I've got my section here of bed, and it's probably in the order of 1.5 to 2 meters wide by about 3 to 4 meters long. What I'm looking at doing is keeping a spare row here, and I might look at planting either green beans or basil in that spot. But then from there I'm going to set up my 2 rows. Now I'm looking at doing 2 trenches long ways up the bed, and I'm going to be setting them out at 60 to 80 centimeters apart. I don't want them to be too close because I do need to be able to the tomatoes do need space to grow. So I'll be looking at putting one of my trenches in this location here, and then going 80 centimeters across, and I'll be putting the second one straight down this line. At the moment, I'm just going to get the rake, just finally rake this bed, make sure it's flat, and then I'll come through with my hoe and start sanding out those trenches. In sanding out my rows, I'm going to use the back of the rake just to put the indentation in the soil as to where I'm going to dig those trenches. And with my hoe, just going to start further detailing those trenches. Now I'm going to try to make them as level as possible. As you can see, the trench is actually quite deep. Just put my hand there. It's probably 20-25 centimeters deep. And the reason why I plant my tomatoes in trenches is actually twofold. Firstly, at this age, when they're still young, gives me a chance to properly water the plants and actually add my fertilizer I need. But more importantly, and in later videos I'll show this, as they grow larger, in about 6 weeks time, I will actually be hilling those tomatoes, and I'll be moving the soil from the left and the right and actually bringing it hard up against the stem. And what that will do is encourage the tomatoes to put out more roots. And when it does that, it makes the plant stronger and more productive. So I'll be doing that in about 6 week stage after I've done my first major prune. And what I'll end up doing is that by moving the soils from the either side of the plants, I'll put the watering trenches on the outside of the plants. But I'll catch that up for you in later videos. But for now, I'm going to come through and plant my tomatoes. And I'm looking at planting them at 6 centimeter spacings in the rows. I'm going to go over to the first spot, and even when I'm planting them out, I do like to plant them deep. So just giving it a dig. Now I try not to cover the leaves when I plant them. Just plant up to the first set of leaves. Just bringing out that. Try to keep as much of the root ball as I can, but that's the seedling. Trying to plant it in this spot. Make sure I'm happy to compress the soil around the base. There. Could have left these to grow another week. I would have preferred them to have been a little bit taller, but at this stage, yeah, I really wanted to get them in by this weekend. So that's planted. Gonna continue through and plant them out at that 60 centimeter spacings. I generally like to plant my first planting of tomatoes here in Sydney in mid-August, and the reason why I do that is so I can get around fruit fly season here in Sydney. It starts in late December and goes all the way to late Feb. Now I find that if I plant my tomatoes in now, I can get my fruit harvested before the fruit flies turn up, and so that doesn't cause me too much of a problem. I don't net my tomatoes, so by December I will have these tomatoes pulled out and I'll be planting my second planting. What I do instead of netting them, I do try to grow outside the fruit fly strike season. Now here in Sydney we don't get frost this late. We rarely do get frost, if anything, in my experience. So planting them now, these should be absolutely fine and I won't have any risk of losing them. So I just finished planting those tomatoes. I end up getting 12, 6 in each row. I need to make sure they settle in over the next few days. They're just starting to wilt, as you can just see right there, but a bit of watering now and a bit of shade. Thankfully today's not too bright, too sunny, so they should be fine. I'm going to go and get the hose now. Just give these a bit of a water just to make sure that they settle in well for the rest of the day. So today's tomatoes are now planted and they're good to go now. I'm going to put a bit of protection over them to stop the birds and the cat from getting into the space. and I'll keep my eye on them, especially when it starts warming up during the week. I might put a bit of a shade cloth over them just to keep them safe from the sun while they're settling in. In about 2 weeks time, I will come through and see how big they've gone, and if they do need it, I might give them their first prune and might add just a little bit of nitrogen fertilizer to get them really going in that first stage of their growth. But happy they're planted, really excited about spring starting in my patch, and I'm hoping, I've still got a lot of tomatoes to plant. Hopefully I'll plant a few more tomatoes out in the garden here. Just got to move on a lot of my winter greens and winter plantings at the moment. And before I wrap up this video, just want to give you an update on my spring seedlings. These seedlings are all doing great. I am having a few problems with slugs. Somehow I get into my seedlings when they're in at night and they are eating through a lot of the seedlings, which is really annoying. But I've had to repot some of my eggplant seedlings. I just haven't got the space to plant them out, although I don't normally repot these. The fact that I haven't got the space in the garden yet, I needed to do it to give them a little bit more time to grow until I free up some more of those spaces. And I'm thinking of clearing the rest of those cabbages, especially the red cabbages, and planting them there. I have lost a few jalapeno seedlings and a few capsicum seedlings to slugs, but I'm hoping that I've had them under control now. But yeah, spring's starting in my patch. Looking really forward to clearing out the winter veggies and starting to get some more tomatoes and eggplants in the garden. Thanks a lot everyone for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support, and I hope to see you in the next one.